Crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Oh no.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing Tag, the Assassination Game, released April 20th, 1982. It was written and directed by Nick Castle, yes, that Nick Castle, and released by New World Pictures. Ali Wong was 1 day old when this film hit theaters. Happy birthday, Ali Wong. You will always be my maybe. The film started with the working title of simply Tag, which has since become the title of another film, not a remake, but also involving a game of tag between adults. Producers Kate Edelman and Gene Ubaud formed the Edelman-Ubaud Partnership and raised $1 million from assorted investors to fund their first film. They were presented with Nick Castle's script for Tag, aka Tag the Assassination Game, based on a handful of articles he'd read about actual college campuses hosting official tag contests, and hired Castle to make his directorial debut. Before production had officially begun, they had already raised another couple million for a budget of $3 million. The film shot almost entirely on the campus of UCLA, which we recently saw standing in for It Had to Be University in Pandemonium, and just before that in The Dorm That Dripped Blood. Very UCLA-heavy season. The film was acquired and set for distribution through Roger Corman's New World Pictures, and Corman considered renaming it in targeted markets as Everyone Gets It in the End and Kiss Me, Kill Me, but I can't find any advertisements that actually used those alt titles, and they're both terrible for this movie. The whole point is that it's a game of tag. It has to be about tag.
Yeah.
There's actually, I'm going to talk about another title I wish they'd used later. The other tag movie I mentioned earlier was based on a private, decades-long game of tag between a handful of lifelong friends, documented in a popular Wall Street Journal article. The players had moved all over the country over the course of the game, but often showed up unannounced to tag each other unexpectedly. The more recent film stars Ed Helms, Jake Johnson, John Hamm, Hannibal Buress, and the star player of their contest, Jeremy Renner, who in decades of playing has never been tagged and is considering retiring from the game after his upcoming wedding. A long-awaited Blu-ray of Tag the Assassination Game is expected to be released sometime this year by Synapse.
Oh, really?
They announced it at the end of last year.
Well, that would have been better than the version we watched.
Right? Yeah. Unfortunately, the only version of the film I could find was a VHS rip, but it starts with a cool 3M video logo of a tiny cartoon man plugging the last pixel into a screen for the logo to light up. The first frame is of the classified section of a newspaper, and as the camera tilts up the page, we see eye holes have been cut for someone to peek through. Then we cut to the POV of someone staring through the holes at a man walking down a hallway. When we see him closer, we can tell this man is a young Xander Berkeley playing a man named Connolly. When he realizes he's being spied on, he pulls a gun. He turns to run, and the newspaper assassin follows him slowly with a gun of his own. When Connolly is cornered under a fire escape outside the building, Connolly takes a shot right in the forehead.
Hello, Connolly.
No.
A small suction cup dart sticks to his forehead and he yanks it off. And we launch right into a full Maurice Binder-style opening credit sequence for Tag the Assassination Game. This might be the most blatant Maurice Binder parody so far. I think Binder so far for the show has done For Your Eyes Only and Live and Let Die, obviously, but for previous episodes we've also seen his work for the time travel storms in The Final Countdown and for the opening credits of The Sea Wolves, and possibly more recently in Green Ice, unless that was another look-alike situation. In the course of the montage, we see the official paperwork for various contestants in the campus-wide tag tournament. The last acting credit from the opening says, "and introducing Bruce Abbott as Gersh," suggesting that the actor was expected to make a big splash after this. Don't know that name. We see silhouetted characters cheersing each other with a wine glass and a dart gun, and then we get the final credit reminding us the film is the first to have been written and directed by frequent John Carpenter collaborator Nick Castle. We cut back to the campus at night, and we see inserts of several suspicious-looking students in ski masks and other various noir costumes taking the game very seriously. Linda Hamilton approaches the camera as Susan Swayze and pulls a folded page out of an envelope to remind herself of her current target. The page features a head-on and profile photo of Jeff Schuster, from Braden dorm. Suddenly, a nearby car in front of her is flashing its headlights, and then a light is flashing in a dorm room behind her. Unclear if they're trying to get her attention or sending a message to each other. Susie walks through a crowded dorm lobby and senses that people around her are watching her. But when she turns around, they all pretend to be reading their own papers.
I feel like at this point I'm very confused about how this game is supposed to work.
Right.
Because we see like a profile, but then she's scared of like everyone around her.
So it's basically a circle of targets. You have a person you're trying to get, someone's trying to get you, and all the names go in a circle.
Okay.
Whenever you kill someone, you get their paperwork, and now your new target is whoever they were targeting. And the circle slowly shrinks.
Oh.
So someone is targeting her. She
Okay.
just doesn't know who.
Okay. All right.
She moves upstairs and follows Jeff Schuster as he carries a full basket of clothes to the laundry room. But when she gets inside, he's nowhere to be found. Just as she turns to leave, he emerges from behind the washing machines to fire on her, but she opens a dryer door to catch his dart with the lid and fires back at him repeatedly.
So this is the part that confuses me because like why are the targets firing back at the person shooting at them?
Because self-defense is allowed.
Yeah.
You can eliminate a player by turning around and firing on them in self-defense. So if someone is targeting you and you kill them, then they need to reach out to Nick, the man running the whole contest, and say, my target missed me, I got them. So you have to give whoever had that person as their target now gets me as their target. That's why all the kills have to be reported to like the home base.
Yeah, I was confused because I'm like, they seem to be fighting each other,
Right.
but
Yeah.
not
And
each other.
There's
but...
a few times where it doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
what just happened. They're both laughing throughout this shootout and collecting each other's darts to fire back at each other. When Susan runs out, she makes a run through the building and finds her path blocked, trapping her in a hallway. She picks a random dorm room to step into and finds Robert Carradine as Alex Marsh sitting alone in a dark room reading Raymond Chandler's Philip Marlowe paperback, Farewell, My Lovely. In keeping with the theme, Susan is being lit through the slats of the dorm room window like a classic noir damsel in distress, and when Alex lowers the book, we can see he's chomping down on a cigar like a stereotypical PI hero. I'm honestly surprised we didn't get voiceover from him here, because over the course of the story we'll learn he's a reporter for the school newspaper, and it would make perfect sense for this to be the beginning of his article about the events of the film. She asks him to be quiet so she can remain hidden in here until the coast is clear outside. When she eventually slips back into the hallway, Alex ashes on himself, distracted by her beauty. When he peeks into the hall, he sees her sneaking up on her target, just as someone else sneaks up on her, and he shouts a warning.
Look out!
She ducks, and the guys she's standing between accidentally shoot over her at each other. Unclear if this eliminates either player, since contestants seem to have one specific target at a time, but they act like they've both just lost.
Well, they have if they've both
Yeah.
been hit.
But neither of them was shooting in self-defense, and neither of them had the other person as their target, because there's a person between both of them. So I feel like it's a situation where you have to reach out to Nick and say, what does this mean?
But were they in theory both shooting at her?
No, one guy was targeting her, one guy was shooting her in self-defense.
I think the rules of the game are if you get hit with a dart, you're dead.
Okay.
Regardless of who
hit
you
Okay.
were shooting at or who
Well,
hit
then
you.
why bother
that-
having a target?
that's
If you
totally
can
making
literally
sense.
hit anybody who's playing, then why
I-
even have a target?
Well, I think the purpose of targets is to move the game along. Like,
Okay.
because...
But literally, if anybody you know is playing, like, why don't they all just go for Gersh first? If he's the guy who's won it so
Yeah.
many times in a row.
Well, because you're given an assignment.
Right, but it would take him out of the game, and then everyone else can have fun because
Yeah.
they know that the expert's not playing anymore. Now we cut to the offices of the school's paper, the Weekly Monitor, and a voice reads Alex's article out loud as we see him type it on a typewriter.
She stood in front of me, her moistened, quivering lips parted, afraid, her piercing eyes focused somewhere between me and the 38 dangling at her side.
The reader is Alex's editor, Frank English, played by Perry Lang. Frank thinks it's a boring story and they've covered this tag game before, but Alex is convinced he has a new angle. He intends to perform a sort of ride-along with one of the contestants to properly convey how the game is played. Right away, Frank sees through his plan, and it's clear Alex is using the article as an excuse to spend more time with the mystery woman who unexpectedly entered his room last night.
Hold it. You wouldn't be tagging along with the mystery woman? You know, the one with the moistened, quivering lips and the piercing eyes, would you? Maybe.
I actually think Tagging Along would have been a much better title for this movie.
Yeah.
Tagging along. He's with her. She's tagging people.
Yeah, that's good.
Just about the only thing we could read on Susan's tag paperwork in the opening credits is that her nickname was listed as Mystery Woman, which seems to be a reference to this specific comment from Frank. Alex walks to the campus information desk to try and find a contact in charge of the tag game. We can overhear a receptionist speaking in a cartoonish secretary voice on the phone, and when we eventually see her, she's blatantly pinching her nose to effect an exaggerated nasal pitch.
Campus information.
She points Alex in the direction of the clubs and activities office. The door to the department lists Chess Club, Jews for Jesus, the Iranian Student Association, and TAG. Just as Alex arrives, Patterson, a campus security guard, is exiting after assuring the man inside that he'll shut down this whole tag game if the contestants cause any trouble. Alex knocks on the office door within and is invited inside, but by pushing open the door, he pulls the strings attached to the triggers of several dart guns aimed directly at him, and he's hit by 2 or 3 of them.
You're gonna have to be a little bit more careful if you want to play tag, the Assassination Game.
Alex admits up front to the game's founder, Nick Carpenter, that he writes for the school paper and is not participating. He's just here to find information on a contestant.
You know what this movie reminds me of?
What's that?
Reminds me of when I watch the old videos of movies that you and your brother made like in high school.
Sure.
For like just fun or school projects or something like that. It's like, okay.
The costumes are literally just whatever we found.
It's like a parody movie, and you guys watched a bunch of films and you tried to rip them all off, and you were a bunch of young kids pretending to be adults.
It does feel amateur hour a bit.
It does, but in like a kind of amusing and charming way.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see this Blu-ray that's coming out because I think it could be really fun.
Yeah.
And it will give it a little bit more production value in terms of like your interpretation watching it. Also, because it's a VHS rip, we're seeing it squared out, and I would like to see the original widescreen format.
Yeah.
I also think it's cute that he named a character Nick Carpenter, like, oh, if I ever marry John, my name will be Nick Carpenter.
Mrs. Nick Carpenter.
He has it written on his journal so many times. Carpenter says all player info is confidential, but he's distracted when another player, Lauren Gersh, the reigning champion of this annual tournament, shows up to announce he has successfully completed another contract.
His first name is Lauren?
Yeah, kind of like the guy who created home movies, Lauren Bouchard. While the two men chat, Alex sneaks into the files, and now Susan's paperwork lists the alias Sapphire, so they literally just changed it for the opening credits. It also lists a weight of like 115 or 125 pounds. It's hard to read here, but in the opening credits, I think it literally just said the word svelte next to weight. Outside, Carpenter is lecturing Gersh on being sloppy because he wants all the players to dress the part of a debonair assassin. Gersh refuses to comply and storms out, insisting he'll never lose the contest. Alex walks wordlessly out of the office with all the information he needed. We cut to Susan sipping a coffee in the quad as someone sneaks up on her with a dart gun in hand.
Nice try, Nance.
It's her roommate Nancy, pretending to be an assassin, but Susie recognized Nancy's perfume. She could still be the assassin, like, you're both playing the game. Susan informs Nancy there's a nearby man watching her, but she already knows.
Oh yeah, his name's Randy Simonetti. He's my assassin. Cute, huh? It's not my type. Who is, dearie? Who is?
They walk away together, and later we see Nancy open a locker and trade one dart gun for another for some reason. She undresses as seductively as she can to change into a swimsuit because she knows Randy is watching her through a nearby window. We see her jump from a diving board into a pool and then screaming for help in the water. Randy dives in to rescue her, but as soon as he has her out of the water, she withdraws the dart from her swimsuit and eliminates him from the contest. Susan, watching them both from above, serves as a witness to the elimination, though we don't always have witnesses for the rest of the game, and it seems like an important part of it. That people could just say, you didn't hit me, and it would be a big problem.
I guess, well, and we'll come to see, though, that playing, the honor system.
Right, yeah.
The honor system is very important, especially to Gersh.
Yeah, that's true. And yet it's not, because he'll blatantly ignore facts. My best guess on why Nancy bothered switching guns was to get a waterproof one, maybe? Or maybe one that would fit in her swimsuit, but I'm not clear why she needed to trade out guns in her locker. Nancy takes a bow for her friend, and Randy pulls her backward into the pool as revenge. We hard cut to the POV of someone reading a new victim sheet. Dwayne Swanson. Dwayne the Smock Swanson. It rhymes with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You get it? It's pretty funny though, right? Soon after, we see Swanson looking quite paranoid as he walks the halls in a bathrobe toward the showers. It seems like he goes into the wrong showers first, and we hear a woman scream before he crosses the hall to the correct ones.
See, like, there's so many like little opportunities for jokes. He should have had a guy scream when he walks into the other door.
That'd be awesome. It's like, is part of the joke here that this guy doesn't shower very often? And if so, why is he choosing to do it right in the middle of the tag hours of the day?
Yeah.
On his way to his shower stall, he hears someone singing O Sole Mio and whips open the curtain to verify they aren't an assassin. Luckily, they're not just naked, standing there. Once Swanson gets his own shower started, we see feet lowering into another stall, and Gersh reaches through the curtain to blast Swanson with cold water. Gersh does a bit of monologuing, and Swanson takes the opportunity to slap his own dart gun off a shelf in the shower, but when it hits the ground, it fires at Gersh before he can get a shot off. I think he wasn't even trying to knock it down, he was trying to grab it, and he accidentally knocked it, and it fired when it hit the ground.
I got you! You're dead!
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute, nothing. The gun went off, it hit you, it's my gun, you're dead!
Gersh has trouble coming to terms with losing, and tries to claim it didn't count somehow.
It wasn't in your hand. It was an accident.
There's no rule that says it has to be in your hand. I beat you. I beat number one. I can't wait to tell Carpenter.
Gersh tries to bribe him to pretend this didn't happen because he's so obsessed with winning, but Swanson has no interest in Gersh's money. Back in his own dorm room, Gersh has a complete meltdown. He's a multi-year winner of the tag contest, and it's become his entire identity. He sobs at a small piano in his room and pounds the desk under it in anger, somehow activating a metronome above the piano. He stares at it for a second, and then slides open the drawer to withdraw another dart gun, but he slips the dart out of it and fills the clip with 9mm bullets, because apparently this was a real gun with a dart in the barrel. Or, dart guns actually fire real bullets, and I just didn't know. Seems pretty dangerous.
Or real guns fire darts, and you didn't know.
Oh my God, yeah, no, I'm sure they do.
Awesome.
Just fire real fast and hard.
And obliterated. It would definitely not go anywhere. He returns to the showers and cranks all the hot water to fill the room with steam.
I thought he was trying to make the cold water come out because he also flushes the toilet. So I thought he was like trying to
to get him to come out?
Yeah, like to drop the water pressure or maybe like have a sudden surge of cold water.
He pulls open the curtain to Swanson's stall and raises a towel toward his assassin.
No hard feelings, Dwayne.
When Swanson accepts the towel, he reveals Gersh's hand under it, holding a dart gun. Swanson somehow recognizes immediately that it's a real gun before Gersh pulls the trigger, shooting and killing him, also erasing any evidence he lost the contest.
Oh, great. Real bullets.
Perfect. Gersh pushes one of those big rolly laundry carts out of the shower and down the hall. We cut now to Susan's room, where she practices her dart accuracy on a mirror. When one of her darts rolls under the door, footsteps passing outside take note of it. When Susan hears the person trying to open her door, she hides in the shadows. The door opens and someone steps inside, so Susan yanks a rug out from under them to knock them off their feet. Turns out it's Alex, here to ask if he can shadow her for the remainder of the contest. She asks why he would sneak in here silently, and he claims it was a reference to her entering his room the night before. Just then, Nancy pops in, but looks supremely embarrassed for having caught Susan with a boy in the room, and quickly leaves apologizing. Susan agrees to let Alex accompany her, but he has to work for it, starting with taking her keys right now to warm up her convertible before she drives it. Elsewhere, we see Gersh phoning Carpenter to announce Swanson has been eliminated. Don't get eliminated.
I just killed Swanson.
Good work, Gersh. Looks like you're on your way to another title. Was the victim profile passed on?
Yeah.
It feels here like he was like trying to confess, and then he realized that it sounded like he was just playing the game.
Right, exactly. While Alex sits in Susan's car, he notices people watching it all over the parking lot. When he determines they're targeting Susan, he skids up to the front of her dorm so she can jump right in and they can speed off together. She lights a couple cigarettes in her mouth at the same time to reward him for a job well done. Susan's new target is a guy named Richard Chudnow. The victim profile includes their entire class schedule so they can be stalked around the campus. They park outside Chudnow's dorm just as he should be leaving for his night class.
I was going to say, we come to find out that the hours in which they can shoot people are only in the evenings?
I don't think it's every day like that. But I think, yeah, there are specific hours each day that you can do it.
I just think it's weird that, first of all, that there are night classes to begin with, and then secondly that, like, they have a whole class schedule if they can't operate during the day.
Yeah, that is weird. While they wait, Alex interviews Susan and takes notes. His questions veer off course when he asks whether or not she has a boyfriend.
I don't believe in them. And what has that got to do with the game?
Motivation. See, I was wondering if people are in this game, to meet new people, or if it's because they have homicidal tendencies,
Motivation. It's something to do.
Susan suddenly notices that while they were chatting, Chudnow's light turned off in his dorm room, and they might have already missed him. When Susan sees him approaching on foot, she tells Alex to kiss her as a distraction so they don't look like people waiting for a target. Chudnow sees them and apologizes for intruding, but when he puts the key in his own car door, Susan spins around and shoots him in the butt to claim another victim. Alex is still reeling from their extended kiss distraction. In class the next day, Nancy tells Susan she spent the whole night with Randy from the swimming pool assassination. Outside the classroom, we see Gersh watching them through a window. She asks Susan how things went with her guy friend, the reporter, and Susan doesn't have much to share.
He's okay. He's okay. It is the nicest thing you've said about a guy in 8 months. You must be in love.
Later, we see Nancy sitting on the bleachers during a track meet for her new boyfriend, Randy. Gersh watches her from under the bleachers, and we see him slip her victim profile out of an envelope. Just as the referee fires the starter pistol for the race, Gersh fires a real one into Nancy, splashing her blood in his own face, and then, before the race is over, he pulls her from behind under the bleachers and runs away carrying her body. Randy is confused to see her vanish so quickly. It looks like Gersh is still using this laundry cart to transport dead bodies around the campus, too. Gersh phones Carpenter to report another successful victim, and we learn that he's won this contest 5 times in the past.
Like, how long is a contest?
I think it's just an annual thing, but I don't know.
Well,
maybe
how
a week
long
or
has this
something.
guy been in college?
Yeah, he's getting his master's in darts. We cut now to a sculpture garden, and one of the headless bronze nudes is positioned directly in front of Alex's editor, Frank, so it appears to have a living human head until he walks out from behind it. It's a pretty funny bit. He finds Alex reading a book in the grass and pitches him on a news story about a pair of missing students.
Disappeared. No trace. No nothing. Roommates don't know where they are. Girlfriends do not know where they are. Gone.
As far as I can recall, Gersh has only murdered 2 students, and one of them was Nancy, so it's strange of him to say girlfriends plural. Also, Nancy was only killed about an hour ago, so she wouldn't be reported missing already.
Are you trying to say that Swanson couldn't have had multiple girlfriends?
That's why they call him Dwayne the Smock Swanson. Because he wears a smock. It's like super hot, though. Alex would rather finish his tag story, and Frank thinks he's crazy for it. He suddenly notices the books Alex is reading about psychologists R.D. Laing and Freud and comes to a conclusion.
She's a psychology major. Oh, that's it. Go away.
But I was still confused because I thought he said Artie Lang, like the comedian from Mad TV and Dirty Work, who more recently was on the Howard Stern show. But that's not what he's talking about, because Artie Lang wasn't famous yet. He was a baby. Alex tries to explain how great she is to Frank and compares Susan to figures from Golden Age Hollywood like Ida Lupino, but Frank is unfamiliar. He stops by the campus information desk again to ask secretary voice Charlene if Susan has been by looking for him. Again, he compares her to Ida Lupino, and again, it's no help. Right on cue, the phone rings on the desk, and it's Susan calling for Alex to explain she's hiding in a nearby phone booth, and her unsuspecting assassin is right outside of it. She needs Alex to conjure a distraction, so he picks up a PA microphone from the information desk to make a campus-wide announcement.
Attention! The Grateful Dead concert starts immediately in Talcum Hall. The Grateful Dead concert starts immediately in Talcum Hall.
When nobody moves, he amends the announcement slightly.
The free Grateful Dead concert starts immediately in Talcum Hall.
Suddenly, students are running and screaming across campus in a massive stampede, including the guy trailing Susan. We get a montage of Susan and Alex spending time around campus under the jazzy instrumental, and then hard cut to the campus bell tower at night. Alex and Susan are peeking through a window at students inside playing ping pong, and specifically a student named Bert Gowdy, Susan's next target, played by Michael Winslow, the famed sound effects man. Gowdy has hired a pair of bodyguards to prevent his tag assassination, and they quickly apprehend an innocent student by mistake. One of his bodyguards is supposedly the first feature film appearance of Forrest Whitaker, but he's unrecognizable in this bad VHS rep. Gowdy speaks in a fake Japanese voice with gibberish words, and his bodyguards translate for the student.
He wants to know who sent you here. No, nobody sent me. I just came to go to the bathroom.
Outside, Alex tries to strike up a conversation about psychology, and Susan calls him out for studying psychology just to impress her. She hears her assassin nearby and tells Alex she thinks she can trick him by taking a swim in the nearby pool. Again, we see a contestant changing into a swimsuit in the locker room while her assassin watches through the same nearby window. Back in the rec room, Gowdy is now pantomiming a game of ping pong by himself. His bodyguards counterintuitively leave him, promising to meet up with him later at the gym. Like, a few minutes later. Why didn't they just stay here with him? I don't understand. What's the point of the guards?
Union break.
I guess. Alex notices Gersh wandering around in the dark and guesses correctly that he's here to assassinate Wallace, the player currently targeting Susan. Alex tells him he just followed another player to the pool, and Gersh disappears after him. We see Wallace waiting for Susan to finish swimming and suggesting to his pet rat that they're actually doing pretty well in the contest. His outfit is reminiscent of Al Pacino in Serpico. Gersh approaches with his gun wrapped in a towel again, this time as a silencer. Susan triggers the same pool distraction, pretending to drown, and Wallace confirms with his rat that they should save her.
Let's go get a Ratatouille.
Do you guys recall the last time we heard someone make a Ratatouille pun about rats?
Was it History of the World?
No, more recently. A zoo employee was instructed to feed rats to a sick animal.
Was it the cat people?
It was cat people. Ed Begley Jr. was like, a little Ratatouille.
Oh, little ratsaroni. Yep. Ratatouille. Rat tartar.
Gersh shouts at Wallace from behind to freeze, so Wallace spins with his dart gun drawn, and Gersh shoots him down with real bullets. The silencer towel around his gun barrel has caught fire, like in the famous Godfather 2 flashback scene when Vito assassinates Don Fanucci, and Susan missed the sound of the gunshot while underwater in the pool pretending to drown. While he waits for Susan to return, Alex notices through a window that Gowdy is no longer in the rec room, and he's lost track of Susan's target. Susan exits the pool, confused where Wallace went, and steps cautiously through the shadows with her dart gun in hand. She almost checks a closet, and through a crack we can see Gersh cradling Wallace's corpse, but before she opens it all the way, the rat sneaks out and scares her, and she lets the door close. Alex admits he lost track of Gowdy. They split up in search of him, and Susan finds him first. Now Gowdy is pretending to be a car to drive his bodyguards around the campus. She follows him discreetly to an exit, and as Gowdy leaves, Alex enters, and she wastes her only dart on a non-combatant. She has trouble finding the dart again, and sends Alex to her locker with the combination to get her other dart gun. Locker 303, combo 34-29-47, which sounded to me like a body measurement, and because for some reason actresses' measurements are available online, I found that Hamilton's were close, but not the same. 35, not 34, 25, not 29, and 37, not 47. He runs off repeating the combination out loud on loop. Do you guys recall the last time we saw our protagonist reciting a girl's private information for all to hear?
Oh, yeah. The phone number in, help me out, Richard.
Some Kind of Hero.
That's correct. We get the same angle, reverse angle from earlier, but now it's Alex at the locker and Gersh watching in the window. Alex seems to have forgotten the combo, or possibly the locker number. We can't hear him clearly. And on the way back to Susan, he spots Gersh and asks if he got Wallace.
Yes. Where you go? Listen, I did you a favor and I need one from you. Can I borrow your gun?
Gersh is surprisingly quick to hand it over, and Alex rushes back to Susan with it. Susan is still following Gowdy around the school without a weapon, and Alex tosses her the borrowed gun just as Gowdy pushes through a door into the gym.
I thought for sure that this was going to be a real gun.
That's the point. She shoots him in the back, but luckily Gersh loaned them an actual dart gun, so Susan didn't kill anybody here. Gowdy begrudgingly hands over his paperwork.
It would have been really funny, like he pulls out two dart guns and goes, wait, this one.
He's like, hold on. He's like weighing them against each other. Looking over the file, Susan sees her last target is Gersh, standing straight ahead of her, and having just taken out Wallace, we know Gersh's target is her. But she reminds Gersh that it's now after midnight, and the rules dictate a truce until the next day's active tagging hours. Alex walks Susan back to her room and wishes her luck for the final day of the contest. She explains that for the finals, there's a party at 7 p.m., but tagging doesn't resume until 9 p.m.
We could sleep all day if we wanted to.
Oh.
He takes too long to capitalize on the comment, and she closes the door in his face. On his way down the hall, he recounts their back and forth, and she pops back out to make more classic noir references, starting by thanking him for being the first person she can count on.
If you ever need me, just whistle.
Whistle?
Yeah. You know how to whistle, Marsh. Just put your lips together and blow.
Of course, echoing the most quoted line of 1944's To Have and Have Not between the soon-to-be-married Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart.
You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow.
This time, though, Susan doesn't let him walk away, and as he stands in the hall in a trance and blocking the path of a busy housekeeper, Susan opens the door yet again to yank him inside. The next morning, he's dutifully typing away in his office, and he promises his editor he'll be done with the story tonight and back to his boring assignments first thing tomorrow. He's been so chipper in the office that the entire staff of the paper have deduced he got laid. Even secretary voice Charlene calls him out, and he makes a show of ordering flowers for Susan from the nearest phone. When the package arrives in Susan's dorm, the roses are delivered with a card and a long golden flower box wrapped in a bow, and for me at least, it's impossible not to compare to another famous movie flower box. Can you guys think of another big golden flower box full of roses that plays a part in a film starring Linda Hamilton? Hint, it had more than roses in the box.
Yeah.
What else is in there?
Well, I'm thinking of the scene in Terminator 2.
That's right.
Yeah. I was trying to think if there was one in Terminator 1.
I don't know if there is.
But for sure it happens in Terminator 2.
Yeah, we have John Connor sneaking out of the mall through the back hallways in what I think he calls the Galleria in the movie, but it was actually the Santa Monica Place. And he gets cornered by Schwarzenegger, who pulls a Winchester rifle out of a flower box and drops all the roses to the floor. Obviously, it could have been inspired by any number of things, but I'd guess it's not impossible that James Cameron had watched Tag, which was Hamilton's only previous lead role, when he was casting her in the first Terminator, and the image of the rose box, intentionally or otherwise, stuck in his brain. Maybe he even predicted that the box in this film would be used to deliver dart guns in the future, but that doesn't happen later in the movie. Susan smiles when she reads the attached card on which Alex claims to have finally remembered her locker combination, but sometime later, another box of roses arrives with a second combination guess. But the first card was right, and the second card is way wrong. It's like 95 or something like that. He goes way off on the second one. With a third box and card, Alex overplays his hand, admitting to being madly in love with Susan, and she looks disappointed by it. She sits on her bed and lights a cigarette. That night, Alex knocks on her door to escort her to the tag party before the final hours of the contest. She's not home, and he finds the third card on the floor of her empty room. He heads to the party alone in search of her, and eventually finds her standing in a circle of eliminated players. Nick Carpenter, always in his sunglasses, finds Gersh in the crowd and congratulates him on another incredible performance and for finally cleaning up his act, because he's here in a full tuxedo with his hair slicked back. When Susan sees Alex coming, she sneaks to the bar to order a scotch ahead of a difficult conversation. She makes it clear she hadn't anticipated there being an item after the contest, and would rather he not accompany her for the final stretch. He ignores her meaning, suggesting other times they might meet up. Nick Carpenter takes the stage to introduce this year's finalists and rescuing Susan from a difficult conversation. When Alex finally catches her meaning, he walks out dejected. Susan looks very guilty on stage, even as Carpenter raises the arms of his competing champions in celebration. Susan is back in her room after the party, and the phone barely sounds half a ring before she answers it.
Marsh? Marsh?
What are you waiting for, Susan? It's 9 o'clock.
Okay, Gersh, let's get this over with.
He offers to meet her at the quad, but couldn't he be right outside her door now? Is it against the rules to lie about these appointment duels? Editor Frank shows up to the Monitor offices late at night and finds Alex there working on the tag story. Frank brought his girlfriend, secretary voice Charlene, and is here hoping to pawn off the missing student story so he doesn't have to back out of a concert date tonight. Alex jokes he'll take Charlene to the show in his place, but ultimately agrees to handle both stories so Frank can have fun. As they leave together, I wanted Charlene to say to Alex, maybe next time though? And for Frank to be like, what the fuck? No. When the finalists arrive together in the dark quad, Gersh whistles Westminster Quarters in a loop. which Americans might recognize as a popular doorbell chime, but originates from the Church of St. Mary the Great in Cambridge, where it sounds on the clock tower every 15 minutes, and the same notes are famously played by Big Ben just as often. Gersh lures her into a nearby building, and she follows some light music down a hall where she finds students practicing their instruments in nearly soundproof booths. In a dark corridor, she crashes head-on into a maintenance man. She notices Gersh ducking into a large recording studio, and then we cut to the equally dark campus security office to ask about the missing students. Turns out, someone's here right now reporting a 5th missing person, and inexplicably, the security officer Patterson finds it appropriate to allow Alex to sit and listen in on the testimony. On his way out, Patterson also has some advice for Alex on how to deal with women.
You're too soft on women. They like a man to take charge, be dominant.
It's easy for you to say you got a gun.
The guy in question is Nancy's boyfriend, Randy Simonetti, and Alex listens to the guy's testimony. When he realizes Randy's talking about Susan's roommate, he interjects.
Did this girl play tag?
Yeah, we both did.
Alex grabs a stack of missing student files and quickly realizes they were all participants in the game. As Susan explores the recording studio, Gersh shuts off the lights, making the scene even darker than it already was. And then, he locks her inside by lodging a chair under the doorknob. She quickly realizes she's trapped in here, and then Gersh starts flipping on spotlights to illuminate himself in the partitioned control booth. He congratulates her on making it this far, and threatens to play for her his final composition as a music major. He explains that if it had won the department-wide music contest, he'd have been granted all kinds of awards and scholarships, but that second place gets nothing. When she doesn't respond, he plays the music, and it's predictably awful, but his piece serves the dual purpose of scoring the rest of the scene, which we confirm when it gets a little quieter for all the shots taking place outside the recital hall. He tries to sneak in to catch her, but they trade places a bit, and she tricks him back into the control booth and then tucks the chair under his door this time, and he has to credit the move.
Nice! Nice! Finally, a worthy opponent! But I'm gonna get you, Susan! I'm gonna get you!
Now we see Alex checking back into the clubs department and Carpenter's office in particular. Right outside the door, he hears a woman scream. He shoves open the door, and we repeat almost exactly the earlier moment, with Alex getting hit by a barrage of booby-trap guns, and Carpenter's same joke about being prepared.
Hey, you're gonna have to be a little bit more careful if you want to play tag.
The glaring difference here is that now there's a girl in the corner holding up a chair like a lion tamer. Unclear if she's defending herself from Alex, who just barged in, or Carpenter, who had her alone in his office after hours when she screamed. Alex drags Carpenter out to the big whiteboard recording everyone's kills and asks for help reading it. He eventually determines that all 5 missing students were playing the game, and they were all targets of co-finalist Gersh right up until the moment they disappeared. He runs to the phone without sharing his fears with Carpenter.
So there's like 10 minutes of this movie left
Right.
at this point.
Yeah.
And this is the first time
anyone knows
that or suspects that somebody has been killed.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's such a strange movie that it's so heavily lopsided that
there was no stakes for anybody until 10 minutes for left in the movie.
There's very little time left, and still only one person knows.
Has anyone ever made a movie where the serial killer, like, they never even find a single body? Like, the whole movie you keep thinking he's going to get caught and then he just never gets caught. That'd be such a weird way to do it. But this is almost that.
I guess Zodiac in a way.
Yeah. Back in the dorms, we see Susan sneaking into Gersh's room, planning to catch him in his home turf, but she makes a disturbing discovery in his closet. A bracelet that had belonged to her now missing roommate Nancy. When she grabs at it, she lifts a blanket out of the closet and reveals the dead faces of all the missing contendants crammed into Gersh's closet. Gersh realizes quickly what she knows and chases her around the dorms, but as she begs passersby for help, she fails to communicate that this isn't part of the game, and Gersh has killed several students with a real gun. She's not saying any of this. Alex runs full blast out into the statue garden and finds Susan. She flags down a campus security truck, and Patterson promises to drive her to safety, but instead decides to investigate her claims, and she doesn't mention that Gersh is a crazy student with a gun who has already murdered 5 people. Alex's next stop is Gersh's dorm, and he asks for the maniac's room number.
Why is he going to Gersh's dorm?
Because he doesn't know anything else, and so he wants to go there to prove to himself that these people are being killed.
Well, I would say my first stop would be to go to campus police.
Well, he's already been to campus police.
But he hasn't told anybody.
That's true. He should have told them before he left when he realized what was going on.
And what's he going to do once he gets the room number?
Well, he's going to go to Gersh's room and verify that he's been killing people.
But how? He's going to break in?
Yeah.
Okay.
And assume there's going to be some sort of evidence sitting there.
Yeah.
Right. Alex's next stop is Gersh's dorm room, and he asks for the maniac's room number. The kid at the front desk takes a surprisingly long time to look it up, especially considering he must have just given the same room number to Susan like 5 minutes ago. When Susan finally mentions Gersh's gun, Patterson starts to load his own weapon until Gersh recites Section 2, Rule 8 of the official rule book.
Of course, the rules say if you're drawn upon, you may respond in kind. Section 2, Rule 8.
He shoots and seemingly kills Patterson, and Alex is close enough now to hear the gunshots and follow the noise to danger. After moving through a campus concert hall, Susan finds a crowded concert taking place behind the closed curtain on stage, which was mentioned offhand in a campus-wide announcement earlier, probably added specifically to explain this scene after test audience confusion.
I do love that she tries to get through the curtain in the center. It's like, nah, you're not
Gotta
getting
go
through.
all the way around.
You'll never find the middle of the curtain when it's closed.
Even in the concert's churning mosh pit, Gersh makes his way gracefully through the crowd toward her. Gersh draws his gun as Susan slips away, and a mosher knocks the weapon out of Gersh's hands by complete accident. Then we get a Club Obi-Wan moment of Gersh crawling around on all fours trying to get his gun back as concert attendants repeatedly kick the gun out of his grasp in an accidental game of keep away. Closing in on the action now, Alex finds the body of Officer Patterson, who had just given him permission to hear about all the missing students, and then, allegedly, given Gersh permission to murder him by loading his own weapon. Moments later, Gersh finally locates Susan and chases her up a stairwell to the building's roof. She locks the stairwell exit at the top of the stairs, and when Gersh reaches the top of the stairs, his silhouette fills the doors with an impossibly bright backlight. He pleads with her to let him out so he can kill her. Losing his patience, he breaks out the door's window with his gun and prepares to fire on her, but Alex follows the sound of shattering glass. Gersh reaches through the shattered window to unblock the door and doesn't notice Susan standing above him on the roof of the stairwell. The Westminster quarters sound again, and Gersh realizes where Susan is camped out. She hits him with a dart before he officially fires, but so did Swanson, and Gersh obviously wouldn't consider this his own failure, but Susan makes the accusation anyway.
You're dead. Huh? You're dead? I shot you first. That's the rules.
Gersh is only momentarily upset, but decides that he can't be dead because he's alive.
I'm not dead. My heart's still beating. You shot me, but my heart's still beating. I can't die. I'm the champion. No one can kill me.
Right on cue, Alex flies out of the stairwell onto the roof with Patterson's revolver and tries to fire on Gersh to save Susan, but the gun just clicks. Patterson wasn't able to fully load it before he died. Alex pulls the trigger over and over until finally the last chamber of the cylinder turns out to be occupied. And Alex hits Gersh dead center mass. Gersh, realizing he's been shot for real this time, tosses down his own weapon in disgust.
That's not fair.
Before turning to dive off the roof of the building to splatter in the courtyard below. Alex and Susan are clearly traumatized, but finish the scene with a quick celebratory makeout sesh. And Susan tosses her gun to the floor with Gersh's real one before we fade to black and credits roll. The end. Tag the Assassination Game. It's weird that it's a straight romantic comedy right up until the end, and then suddenly it's a serial killer movie.
Well, it's a serial killer movie throughout. They just don't know it.
Yeah, nobody knows the movie they're in until the last second.
Yeah.
I do think it's fun. I feel like I would like to see something like this remade.
Yeah.
But they should know that they're getting actually killed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Did you guys see Game Night?
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
That was great.
I think that's a fun version of this story.
Yeah.
Where they think they're in a game, but
what's that guy's name? Kirsten Dunst's husband that he was on Breaking Bad, and he's like the neighbor that brought chips.
Oh, Jesse Plemons?
Yeah, he's so great. He's like so awkward.
Is that Kirsten Dunst's husband?
Aren't they married, or are they just together?
I don't know.
I feel like they've been together for a long time. I'd be surprised if they weren't married.
Because they were both in Power of the Dog, right?
Oh, maybe that's where they met.
Look at that.
Are they married?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's so great. He's terrifying on Breaking Bad.
He's terrifying in so many things.
That's true. Yeah.
Civil War. Oh yeah, they were both in Civil War too.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Tag the Assassination Game.
As we talk about
I really liked it. It doesn't seem like what I would have guessed for Nick Carpenter's first film. Or Nick Carpenter. It doesn't seem like what I would have guessed for Nick Castle's first film. But it's fun, the way that his movies are fun moving forward.
Yeah, I wish it had, to Jesse's point, I wish it had been maybe a little bit higher than what like a high-budget student film kind of felt.
Yeah.
Because being shot entirely on the campus. And
it's so dark the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard to make out what's going on for so much
and that
of it.
might just be the transfer that we saw.
Yeah, that's true. But I think he does a full-length commentary on the Blu-ray that's coming out too. So.
But it's an amusing little movie.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed it.
And it's neat that these are like early performances from these people who went on and did a lot of stuff still.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't say that it doesn't waste really any time. And yeah, I liked it. I really did. I feel like we didn't do it really kind of justice because of the way we watched it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also think that it's not something that you can really fully describe what's happening, because a lot of it is in
it's just the mood.
The nuance and the aesthetic of what you're seeing and how it parodies noir.
I think that I would have liked for them to dip into that a little bit more, because they do make a few references at the start. It's more front loaded with it.
Yeah.
But then we kind of drop the whole this is a noir parody for the rest of the thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, she is smoking constantly, but aside from that, I feel like there's more they could have done. But yeah, thumbs up or thumbs down though.
I'm gonna give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, it's a thumbs up for me.
I'll give it a thumbs up. And then what do we do for Letterboxd on this one?
So I have it at 30 out of 59, so that's pretty much smack dab in the middle. It's below Quest for Fire and above Cat People.
I have it at 29, which puts it below Porky's but above Parasite.
Okay. I have it at 44. It's just under Personal Best and just above Making Love.
You had this below the last movie we watched?
Yeah.
What?
It's like amateur filmmaking. It doesn't look as good.
I don't care if it's amateur. It's what movie would you rather watch?
That's not how my list works. My list works like if you only have enough life left to watch this movie or this movie, which one? And I would say Wolf Lake first.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Strongly disagree.
Well, maybe my vote would change if Wolf Lake were on VHS and Tag were a really nice Blu-ray, but it's not. And that affects my opinion of a movie, if I can make out what's happening. Our writer-director here was Nick Castle. We just heard him as the voice of the alien in John Carpenter's Dark Star. He co-wrote Resurrection of Bronco Billy with Carpenter, and later he writes Skate Town USA, Prey TV, Escape from New York. This was his directorial debut. Later he writes Hook, Escape from L.A., August Rush, and IMDb gives him an uncredited credit on 2012's Lockout, a script by Luc Besson, which was such a blatant ripoff of the Escape from L.A. New York films that Castle and Carpenter sued, and the French courts found in their favor. Castle also has directing credits on The Last Starfighter, Dennis the Menace, Major Payne, and Mr. Wrong. The music here came from Craig Safin, or Safin. He was previously the composer of The Great Smoky Road Block, which we saw a poster for in Basket Case. Later, he scores Corvette Summer and Roller Boogie, and so far on the show, Die Laughing and Fade to Black. Later, he scores Angel, The Legend of Billie Jean, Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, Stand and Deliver, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and Nick Castle titles Major Payne and Mr. Wrong. The cinematographer here was Willie Carrant. Looks like mostly small French titles before the 80s. We've seen his work so far on the show lighting Running Scared, and after this he lights Tough Turf, and much later, Pootie Tang. The editor here was Tom Walls. So far on the show he's cut Roadie and High Risk. He's back this season for Endangered Species, and later Ice Pirates, Bachelor Party, Trouble in Mind, Mac and Me, Surf Ninjas, and House Party 3. Robert Carradine played Alex Marsh, the youngest of the famous acting Carradine brothers. He'd appeared previously in Mean Streets, The Pom Pom Girls, and Orca. We've seen him now in The Long Riders and The Big Red One. Later, he's Lewis in the Revenge of the Nerds films. He's in Escape from L.A., Ghosts of Mars, and he was Lizzie McGuire's dad on that show and film. More recently than that, he appeared in Django Unchained. Linda Hamilton played Susan Swayze. Later, she shows up in Children of the Corn before her best-known role as Sarah Connor in James Cameron's Terminator franchise. She's also in Dante's Peak, and she's currently General Eleanor Wright on Resident Alien. Kristine DeBell played Nancy McCauley. Before this, she was in Meatballs and so far on the show in Willie and Phil and Battle Creek Brawl. Lately, she has connected with the 1313 crowd for some of those, including A Talking Cat and A Talking Pony, and more recently in something called Wrong Mr. Right, not to be confused with director Castle's Mr. Wrong. Perry Lang played Frank English. He appeared previously in Spielberg's 1941 and so far on the show in The Hearse, The Big Red One with Robert Carradine, Alligator, and Cattle Annie and Little Britches. As I mentioned before, he transitioned behind the camera to direct a handful of popular television series, including Millennium, Arliss, Nash Bridges, Charmed, Gilmore Girls, Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill, Medium, and Everwood, and his most recent credit was directing a faith-based film called An Interview with God. John Mengatti played Randy Simonetti. Didn't recognize much after this. Michael Winslow played Gowdy. We've covered all his previous films, Cheech and Chong's next movie, Underground Aces and Nice Dreams. Later he appears in Gremlins, and then most famously as Larvell Jones in the Police Academy movies. He also has a cameo in Spaceballs. Fraser Smith played Nick Carpenter, not much. Bruce Abbott played Loring Gersh. After this, he's a Ryland Sergeant in Nick Castle's The Last Starfighter. He's Dan Kane in Reanimator. He's the original Nikolai Kozov in MacGyver episode Thief of Budapest, recast by Anthony DeLongis in Season 3, Episodes 1 and 2, and he was introduced to Linda Hamilton on the set of this film, and they were soon married, separating in '89 after a 7-year marriage. So Linda Hamilton was married to Gersh, and Gersh was the guy who says, MacGyver, when they drive over the border crossing. Xander Berkeley played Connolly. We saw him last as the adult son of Joan Crawford for, I think, just the will reading scene at the end of Mommy Dearest. After this, he's in Sid and Nancy, Tapeheads, Deadly Dreams, and The Grifters. He's John Connor's milk enthusiast foster dad in Terminator 2. He had one-off roles in Briscoe and X-Files. Later, he's in Barbed Wire, The Rock, Air Force One, Gattaca, Amistad, Storytelling, and he's the stepdad opposite Liam Neeson's biological father character in the Taken films. He's Detective Gigante, or Gigante, in Kick-Ass. He's Charles Monroe on Justified. He's Gilad Palion in The Mandalorian and on Star Wars Tales of the Empire. Ivan Bonar played Patterson. We've seen him so far as Chalmers, the landlord renting out the coastal cabin in Same Time Next Year, and later in our mini-sode review of Getting Wasted. Scott Dunlop played Wallace. He's back next season as Sharkman in Flicks, and later Tentacle Alien in Director Castle's Last Starfighter. So the guy with the rat on his shoulder is a tentacle alien.
There's a lot of people that are going to be in The Last Starfighter.
Yeah. But most of his credits are actually for creating and producing the Real Housewives franchise. He pitched the original series on his own and has since sold 27 spin-offs and counting in different parts of the world. The kid with the rat on his shoulder.
Wow.
Jim Greenleaf played Swanson. We've seen him so far in Gorp, Carbon Copy, and Evil Speak. I think in Gorp he's the one who closes himself in a locker and masturbates.
I blanked out most
What a
of Gorp.
great movie. He's back this season for Night Shift and next season in Joysticks and Surf 2. Charlene Nelson played Charlene. She's a Ryland technician in Last Starfighter. Her IMDb photo is actually her in the high forehead Ryland bald cap.
Yeah.
With the whole silver dress uniform. Stephen Peterman plays Schuster. I recognize this kid right away as the journalism student at the start of Where the Buffalo Roam, who Hunter Thompson gets drunk in court. I don't think he's going to talk. We also saw him as Leon in All Night Long, so not Midnight Madness Leon.
Yeah.
He went on to a prolific TV writing career, including 59 episodes of Suddenly Susan, 12 Hannah Montanas, and 26 Murphy Browns. Jack Baker played Gowdy's aide. Before this, he'd appeared in Friday Foster and the Kentucky Fried Movie, but his hundreds of credits after this are mostly porn. Isabel Cooley played Professor Wadsworth. She has credits in Cleopatra, later this season in The Escape Artist, and later still in Breathless, Real Genius, Parenthood, and Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out. John Mayo played Boy in Game Room. He's a friendly alien in The Last Starfighter. Christopher S. Nelson played Chudnow, seemingly named after Richard Chudnow, who plays the coach in this film. I'm assuming. Whenever we have a character that gets the last name of another actor, I assume that it's not a coincidence. He appeared before this in Roller Boogie and on the show so far for Without Warning. After this, he only has one more credit in Pink Motel later this season. Dan Priest played Janitor. He was Colonel Stroud in a snake movie called Rattlers. And much later, he's a professor in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Robert Starr played Boy in Shower. He's Rex Kramer in the Kentucky Fried Movie and one of the Hare Krishnas in Airplane. a film which reuses the Rex Kramer name for a different character, the Robert Stack.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rex.
So it's funny, Robert Starr and Robert Stack both played Rex Kramers for, what do they call themselves? It's like Zaz, right? Zucker Abrams Zucker. Later, Robert Starr appears in Last Starfighter, Summer Rental, and Alien Nation. Jim Veneziano played another tag player. He's back later this season as a referee in Kiss My Grits, and more recently, he was Jim the Mechanic in Sons of Anarchy. Forrest Whitaker plays one of Gowdy's bodyguards. This was his first movie. Didn't even see him in there. He's back this season in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Later, he's in The Color of Money, Platoon, Good Morning Vietnam, Bloodsport, The Crying Game, Species, Mr. Holland's Opus, and Phenomenon. He's the lead of Jim Jarmusch's Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai, and later, Battlefield Earth, Panic Room, Phone Booth, The Last King of Scotland, Where the Wild Things Are, Taken 3, and Dope. He's also Saw Gerrera in Rogue One, and more recently he's in Sorry to Bother You, Black Panther, and then reprised the Gerrera character on the Disney Plus series Andor. Rod Firestone played Rubber City Rebels. I guess that's the band that's performing on the stage.
Okay.
He is a musician with soundtrack credits in Hard Bodies, Just One of the Guys, and My Friend Dahmer, which somehow includes his song Rubber City Rebels, which is his character credit in this film. So maybe he sings it in the movie, and My Friend Dahmer features a clip from this. I don't know what's going on there. Johnny Bethesda is another Rubber City Rebel. Same odd soundtrack credits in My Friend Dahmer. Maybe I should watch that one. Buzz Click, Rubber City Rebels, same credits again. And Michael Joseph Pierce, college student uncredited. After this, he's uncredited in Teen Wolf, Return of the Killer Tomatoes, K-9, and much more recently, he played General Mills in Jerry Seinfeld's Pop-Tarts movie, Unfrosted. He plays General Mills in that. That's weird. Anyway.
That joke is funnier than it should be.
I think that's everything for Tag the Assassination Game. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you enjoy what we're doing, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I don't think it helps visibility, but it's good for morale. And if you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast for access to all our monthly 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between Brannigan, Deep Red, Escape to Witch Mountain, Funny Lady, The Great Waldo Pepper, Mirror, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Rancho Deluxe, Rosebud, Tommy, Terror of Mechagodzilla, or The Yakuza for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing Diva, which IMDb describes like so. 2 tapes, 2 Parisian mob killers, 1 corrupt policeman, an opera fan, a teenage thief, and the coolest philosopher ever filmed all twist their way through an intricate and stylish French language thriller. We leave you now with the trailer for Diva.
That sounds terrible.
It's actually great.
Is it?
Yeah.
La Wally, acte 1. Cynthia Hawkins, comment tu l'as eu? Elle a jamais fait un seul enregistrement.
Saute. Ah, c'est la chaîne qui te gêne.